When the storm came rolling down from the Rockies that night, everything changed on the Black Ridge Ranch. The wind howled like a pack of wolves, tearing through the wooden fences, rattling loose doors, and chasing every living soul inside. But through the curtain of rain, one woman kept walking, her figure small, her face hidden under a soaked shawl. She dragged behind her a battered suitcase and a tin pot, clanging softly with every step. Her name was Clara May Hensley. 32 years old. Short, round-faced, and heavier than most women of her time. The world hadn't been kind to her. People in town used to whisper, "No one's gonna want a fat woman like her, she better learn to cook or pray." And so she did both. She prayed hard. And she cooked like her life depended on it. That stormy night, she walked 5 miles through mud and thunder to the house of James Whitlock, a rancher known across the county, not for kindness, but for being cold, rich, and widowed. Sound of thunder, crackling fire. When Clara reached the porch, she collapsed, her dress torn at the hem, hands shaking. The tall man who opened the door looked down at her, 6'3", rugged, in his late 30s. His shirt was half unbuttoned, boots caked in mud. James Whitlock had seen many things on his land, but never a woman like this. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice deep, cautious. She looked up, water dripping from her lashes. Her voice trembled but carried a strange calm. "No one loves a fat girl, sir, but I can cook." Short pause, dramatic silence, music swells softly. Before we continue this story of love, pride, and redemption, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the Kindness Chronicles, because what happens next will remind you that kindness can bloom even in the coldest hearts. Music fades in again, storytelling resumes. James didn't answer at first. He just stared at her, this stranger, drenched and desperate, standing on his doorstep in the middle of nowhere. Finally, he said, "You'd better come in before you drown." Clara followed him inside, dripping onto the wooden floor. The cabin smelled of tobacco, leather, and loneliness. A rifle leaned against the fireplace, and the only sound was the ticking of an old clock. James handed her a towel and watched as she wrung the water from her shawl. She spoke again, voice soft but steady. "I heard you needed help after your cook quit." James frowned. "You walked here, in that storm?" "I had nowhere else to go, sir. Just give me a kitchen and a chance. You won't regret it." He didn't know why he agreed. Maybe it was pity. Maybe curiosity. But something in her eyes, that quiet strength behind the sadness, made him nod. "Fine," he said. "You can stay till morning. We'll see about the rest." The next morning, the storm had passed. The sky stretched blue over the golden plains. James woke to a smell he hadn't felt in years, fresh cornbread, bacon, and coffee. Clara stood by the stove, humming softly, her cheeks glowing from the fire. She looked peaceful. He sat down, and she placed the plate in front of him. He took one bite, and froze. It was the best food he'd ever tasted. Simple, honest, but filled with heart. She smiled shyly. "I told you, sir. I can cook." From that day, Clara became part of the ranch. She cleaned, cooked, fixed torn saddles, and even helped deliver a calf once. The ranch hands, at first mocking her behind her back, slowly grew to respect her. But James stayed distant. He'd lost his wife 2 years ago to pneumonia. Her ghost still lingered in every corner, her books, her dress folded in the chest by the window. He wasn't ready to let anyone near his heart again. And yet, he'd find himself watching Clara when she wasn't looking, the way she laughed with the stable boy, or fed the stray dog by the barn. She carried warmth like a lantern. Weeks passed. One cold evening, James found her crying behind the house. He stepped closer. "What's wrong?" She quickly wiped her face. "Nothing, sir. Just silly thoughts. He noticed her hands, red and cracked from scrubbing, bleeding slightly. "Let me see that," he said, taking her hands gently. She froze. No man had touched her in years. "You're hurting yourself working this hard." She smiled faintly. "It's better than being useless. People don't look twice at women like me, Mr. Whitlock. But when I cook, they remember me for a moment. That's enough." Something inside him cracked then. For the first time in years, James felt something other than grief. He felt care. A few nights later, he found her in the kitchen, experimenting with stew and wild herbs. He sat at the table silently, watching her work. Finally, he asked, "Why did you really come here, Clara?" She stopped stirring. The only sound was the bubbling pot. Then she whispered, "Because this was the last place that hadn't turned me away." She looked at him, eyes wet but steady. "Every town I went to, they said I was too big, too plain, too strange. I thought maybe, on a ranch, among people who know struggle, I might belong." He stood up slowly and walked to her. "You do belong here." For the first time, she looked at him, really looked. And what she saw in his eyes wasn't pity. It was something she hadn't seen in a long time, respect. As the months went by, the ranch began to flourish again. The cattle were healthy, the men worked harder, and James smiled more often. Clara became the heart of that place. But gossip spread in town, cruel words about the fat woman who trapped the widower. One evening, James returned from town furious. He slammed his hat on the table. "They're saying things about you, Clara. About us." She lowered her gaze. "It doesn't matter, sir. I'm used to it." He stepped closer. "It matters to me." She looked up, eyes shimmering. "Why, Mr. Whitlock? Why would a man like you care what they say about a woman like me?" He paused, searching her face. Then he said quietly, "Because they're wrong." Soft music builds, emotional pause. "They said no one could make this ranch feel alive again. They said no one could make me smile again. And yet, here you are." Tears filled her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt seen. He reached out and gently brushed a tear from her cheek. "Clara," he said softly, "you're not invisible here." The camera pans out, the prairie glowing under the evening sun. But fate wasn't done testing them. That night, as the wind picked up again, a fire broke out in the barn. Flames tore through the hay and wood, lighting up the sky. James ran out shouting orders. Clara followed, coughing from the smoke, helping pull animals to safety. In the chaos, a beam collapsed, trapping James inside. Without hesitation, Clara ran in after him. "Clara, no," one of the ranch hands screamed, but she didn't stop. Through the flames, she found him pinned beneath debris. She used every ounce of her strength, the strength people mocked her for, and lifted the beam just enough for him to crawl out. The moment they reached safety, the barn exploded behind them. James grabbed her, coughing, his face streaked with soot. She smiled weakly through tears. "Guess being fat saved your life tonight, sir." He laughed, the first real laugh in years, and pulled her into his arms. Soft piano music, calm after chaos. In that firelight, he finally saw the truth he'd been blind to. Kindness isn't about perfection. Beauty isn't about size. And love, sometimes walks in during a storm, carrying a tin pot and a broken heart. James looked at her and said, "You saved me, Clara. And not just from the fire." She whispered back, trembling. "Does that mean I can stay?" He smiled, and for the first time, his eyes were warm. "You're home. Fade out, prairie dawns anew."